What happens when the man who inherited a 14-store café chain stands in a slow-moving line and watches one of his own employees humiliate a sleep-deprived customer? Owen Zeller adjusted his baseball cap lower over his forehead and shifted his weight as the line barely crawled forward. It was a rainy Tuesday morning, and the downtown café buzzed with tired people desperate for caffeine. Owen, dressed in worn jeans and a faded hoodie, kept his head down. Nobody here would recognize him. He had inherited the business from his father 3 years ago, but had never met most employees face to face. The cafés were spread across 2 states, and he had let district managers handle hiring and training. Maybe that had been a mistake. He had received a few complaints about long wait times and cold service lately, but nothing serious enough to raise alarms. Still, something nagged at him. He decided to see for himself. No secret cameras, no heads-up visits, just him in line like any other customer. The line snaked almost to the door. Owen glanced at the counter. 2 baristas moved behind it, a tall guy with a buzz cut and a woman with short, curly hair. The guy, whose name tag read Kyle, looked annoyed every time someone ordered something complicated. The woman, Chloe, kept her head down and moved quickly, pulling shots and steaming milk like her life depended on it. "Keep it moving, people," Kyle barked suddenly, clapping his hands once. Owen flinched. A few customers exchanged uncomfortable looks but said nothing. A woman in front of Owen shifted nervously. She wore wrinkled scrubs and clutched her wallet in both hands. Dark circles hung under her eyes. She finally stepped up to the counter. "Large drip coffee, please," she said, voice hoarse. Kyle stared at her. "No fancy order." "You sure you're in the right place?" The woman blinked, confused. "Just black coffee, please," Kyle snorted loud enough for the line to hear. "Well, someone's having a rough morning. Maybe try a shower next time." The woman's face crumbled. She fumbled with her wallet, cheeks burning. Owen felt his fists clench. "That's $6, Kyle said, still grinning. The woman dropped a few crumpled bills on the counter and hurried to the side, eyes on the floor. Owen's heart hammered. He had seen enough, and he wasn't even at the front of the line yet. Chloe handed the woman her coffee silently, avoiding eye contact, clearly uncomfortable but saying nothing. Owen stayed silent too for now. When he finally got to the counter, Kyle didn't even look at him. "What do you want, large drip?" Owen said, keeping his voice even. Kyle sighed loudly like Owen had asked for gold-plated beans. "Name?" "Eric," Owen lied, picking the first name that popped into his head. Kyle scribbled it messily on a cup and tossed it toward Chloe without a word. As Owen stepped aside to wait, he watched the cafe carefully. Tables were dirty. Trash bins overflowed. A family near the window struggled to find a clean spot. Chloe worked hard, handling drinks and cleaning when she could, but Kyle mostly leaned against the counter, staring at his phone in between orders. Owen's stomach twisted. This wasn't how his father built the business. It wasn't how Owen wanted to run it either. He grabbed his coffee when Chloe called out Eric and slipped into a corner booth. He needed to see more before making a move. Over the next hour, things only got worse. Kyle snapped at a teenager for ordering wrong, then loudly mocked an elderly man who asked for one of those fancy lattes. Chloe apologized quietly after each incident, but Kyle didn't seem to care. Owen noticed something else too. Chloe avoided Kyle when she could, moving around him like he was a landmine. After another, rude encounter this time with a young mom juggling a stroller and a toddler, Owen had enough. He took a breath, stood up, and tossed his half-finished coffee in the trash. It was time to come back tomorrow earlier and dig deeper. He needed to see how management was running this place when they thought nobody important was watching. He walked out into the rain, heart heavy. Tomorrow he was coming back, and not just as a customer. The next morning, Owen left his apartment before sunrise. He wore the same jeans and hoodie, but this time tucked a plain black apron into his backpack. He had called the store last night, using a fake name and claiming he was a new hire sent by corporate to observe and assist for a few shifts. It was a risky move, but he needed to get behind the counter. Only then could he see the real damage. The rain had stopped, but the streets were still slick when he arrived. The cafe lights glowed in the pre-dawn gloom. Inside, the floor was sticky underfoot, the air thick with the smell of burnt coffee. Chloe stood alone behind the counter, stacking cups with quick mechanical movements. Kyle was nowhere to be seen. Owen pushed the door open and walked in. Chloe glanced up, startled. "You here for the shift?" She asked, voice rough from fatigue. "Yeah," Owen said, keeping his tone casual. "Eric, they said I should check in." Chloe nodded without smiling. "Kyle's running late, again." She tossed a towel over her shoulder. "Grab an apron. You ever make espresso before?" "A little," Owen said. "You can show me if you want." "No time," Chloe muttered, jerking her thumb toward the machine. "We're opening in 10 minutes. As Owen tied on his apron, a few early customers trickled in. Chloe handled the register and drinks by herself, her hands moving fast but her face blank. Owen started wiping down the counters, noting the grime caked into the corners. The cleaning checklist, posted on the wall, was barely filled out for the last week. 5 minutes after opening, Kyle strolled in, earbuds dangling around his neck. He wore the same wrinkled black shirt from yesterday and carried a greasy breakfast sandwich in one hand. "You're late," Chloe said, not looking up. Kyle shrugged. "Traffic, chill out." He dropped his sandwich on the counter, crumbs scattering, and leaned against the back wall. Owen watched as he opened his phone and started scrolling. Chloe worked around him, lips pressed tight. Owen moved to the register to help, and for the next hour they served a steady stream of commuters. Kyle took a few orders when forced to, but mostly barked at customers to speak up or figure it out when they stumbled over the menu. Twice, he got impatient and just walked away, leaving Chloe and Owen scrambling. When a middle-aged man asked if the oatmeal was gluten-free, Kyle laughed and said, "You look like you've had enough gluten in your life, buddy." The man's face fell. He quietly left without ordering. Owen caught Chloe's eye. Her shoulders sagged slightly, but she didn't say anything. By mid-morning, the flow of customers eased. Owen wiped tables while Chloe restocked napkins. Kyle lounged near the pastry case, texting with one hand and sipping a drink with the other. "You guys are slow," Kyle said loudly. "I could run this place blindfolded." Owen set down his rag and walked behind the counter. "You been here long?" he asked casually, rinsing a pitcher. 8 months, Kyle said, puffing out his chest. "Manager tried to tell me what to do at first, but I know how to handle customers. They need someone who doesn't take their crap." Owen nodded slowly. "You ever get feedback from corporate?" Kyle snorted. "Those suits. They don't know what it's like down here. They sit in their offices and count money." Chloe kept her head down, pretending not to listen. Around noon, the daytime assistant manager, a wiry woman named Tara, arrived. She looked frazzled, keys jingling at her hip. "Sorry, guys," Tara said, out of breath. "My kid's school called, emergency dentist appointment. I can only stay an hour." Kyle shrugged. "Whatever, we got it. You sure?" Tara asked, glancing uncertainly between him and Owen. "We're fine," Kyle said, waving her off. "Go to your mommy stuff." Tara hesitated, then rushed back out the door. As soon as she left, Kyle tossed his apron onto a chair and grabbed his sandwich again. Owen stared at him. "You're taking a break." "Yeah," Kyle said through a mouthful. "Been here for hours, man." "You were late," Owen pointed out. Kyle shrugged again. "Not my fault, Chloe's slow." Chloe didn't react. She just kept grinding coffee beans, her hands moving like clockwork. Owen gritted his teeth. He helped Chloe with drinks, cleaned up the front area, and tried to keep the line moving. Kyle stayed planted at the back table, scrolling through his phone and occasionally shouting half-hearted instructions. By 2 o'clock, the cafe had fallen into a rhythm. Chloe worked with quiet efficiency. Owen kept customers happy. Kyle did nothing. Then a woman in a hijab came in with 2 little boys. They were giggling, pointing excitedly at the pastry case. The woman smiled warmly and ordered 2 hot chocolates and a latte. As Owen started the drinks, he heard Kyle mutter under his breath, just loud enough for the nearby customers to hear. Hope they don't bring a bomb with that cocoa. The cafe went silent. The woman froze, her face stricken. One of the little boys tugged at her sleeve, confused. Owen's blood ran cold. Kyle chuckled to himself and turned back to his phone. Chloe set down her pitcher with a sharp clatter. She opened her mouth, but Owen moved faster. He ripped off his apron and marched around the counter. "Kyle," Owen said, voice low and dangerous. "Get up." Kyle looked up lazily. "What's your problem, new guy?" "I'm not new guy," Owen said, pulling the baseball cap from his head. "I'm Owen Zeller. I own this company." The color drained from Kyle's face. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. "You're fired," Owen said, cutting him off. "Effective immediately. Get out." Kyle stood, knocking over his chair. "You can't just now," Owen said, voice like steel. Kyle glanced around. Every customer in the cafe was staring. Chloe stood frozen behind the counter, eyes wide. Without another word, Kyle grabbed his phone and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Owen turned to the woman and her sons. "I'm so sorry," he said, voice cracking slightly. "That behavior is completely unacceptable. Your drinks are on the house today and every visit after this if you'll give us another chance." The woman nodded stiffly, ushering her children toward a table. Owen turned back to Chloe, who was still clutching the milk pitcher. "You okay?" he asked. She blinked, then nodded slowly. "Thank you," she whispered. Owen picked up his apron again. "Let's finish the shift," he said. "Then you and I are going to have a serious talk. Things are changing around here." Chloe exhaled shakily and nodded again. Together they turned back to the counter. The weight in the cafe shifted. Customers relaxed. A quiet hum of conversation returned. Owen glanced at the dirty tables, the broken morale, the tired but determined employee beside him. This was only the beginning. The cafe door swung shut behind Kyle, a gust of damp air following him out. Owen stood still for a moment, surrounded by a heavy, stunned silence. Chloe wiped her hands on her apron and glanced nervously at the customers, who were still watching. Owen turned back to the counter without a word and started working. Chloe followed his lead. Orders were filled, tables were wiped, spills were mopped without hesitation. Slowly, the normal rhythm returned, but the mood had shifted. Customers who had once stood stiff and wary now relaxed, chatting quietly among themselves. When the rush subsided, Owen leaned against the counter and looked at Chloe. "How long has it been like this?" he asked, voice low. Chloe hesitated, her fingers tightening around a stack of napkins. "Months," she said finally. "Since the old manager left, Kyle just filled the gap." "Tara tries, but she's stretched thin between two stores." Owen nodded slowly, absorbing her words without interrupting. "Why didn't anyone report him?" he asked. Chloe shrugged, a bitter edge creeping into her voice. "People are scared, you complain, you get fewer hours. Or you get stuck on the worst shifts. No one wanted to risk it." Owen frowned. "That's not how this company is supposed to run, not even close." Chloe gave a small, exhausted laugh. "Maybe not, but that's how it is when no one's watching." Owen looked around the cafe. The floors were worn, the chairs wobbled, and the espresso machine let out a tired hiss every few minutes, as if protesting its own existence. Everything looked functional but neglected, like the soul had been scraped out of it. He pulled out his phone and sent a quick message to his operations director. It was simple: meet at the downtown cafe at closing tonight, no excuses. "We're going to fix this," Owen said, sliding his phone back into his pocket. "But it's not going to happen overnight." Chloe nodded, some of the tension easing from her shoulders. The afternoon dragged on. Without Kyle, the workload was heavier but manageable. Chloe moved with more confidence, no longer glancing over her shoulder every few minutes. Owen stayed behind the counter, pulling shots, steaming milk, wiping counters. Customers noticed the change. Several tipped generously, murmuring thanks under their breath. Around 5, the after-work rush hit. A line snaked to the door again, but this time there was no shouting, no eye rolls. Owen noticed a group of regulars who had avoided the cafe the previous day now chatting animatedly by the window. An older woman who had once been rushed out by Kyle lingered over her tea, smiling at Chloe as she worked. Owen caught Chloe's eye as he handed off a cappuccino. "You're good at this," he said simply. She flushed, ducking her head. "Thanks, I used to love it here." The words hung between them, heavy but honest. At 6, Tara returned. She looked frazzled, her hair pulled into a messy bun. "Hey," she said, pushing through the door. She frowned when she noticed Kyle's absence. "Where's he's gone?" Owen interrupted. "Fired?" Tara's eyes widened. "You're serious?" Owen nodded. "Dead serious. We'll talk after close." Tara glanced at Chloe, who gave a slight nod of confirmation. Tara exhaled, the tension draining from her face like a deflating balloon. "Good," she said quietly. "About time." The rush thinned out after that. Tara and Chloe worked methodically, putting away supplies, cleaning equipment. Owen stayed too, scrubbing the baseboards behind the counter, something that clearly hadn't been done in months. By 8, the last customer left. Owen locked the door behind them and flipped the sign to closed. He turned to Chloe and Tara. "Take a seat," he said, pulling 2 chairs over to a clean table. Chloe sat gingerly, looking wary. Tara folded her arms, waiting. Owen didn't waste time. "I'm Owen Zeller," he said, voice firm. "I inherited this company. I know it's been run poorly these past few years. That's on me. I trusted the wrong people to oversee things." Neither woman spoke, but their eyes stayed locked on him. "This cafe is broken," he continued. "Not because of you two, because leadership failed you." Tara shifted slightly, looking uncomfortable. "I'm not here to make excuses," Owen said. "I'm here to make changes." He pulled out a small notebook and flipped it open. "First, we're rehiring a proper store manager, someone experienced who knows how to support a team instead of tearing it down." Tara exhaled softly, relief evident. "Second, Chloe, I want you promoted to lead barista. You've kept this place afloat without any recognition. That ends now. You'll get a raise and proper hours." Chloe's mouth opened slightly, stunned, but no words came out. "Third, we're fixing the maintenance issues. New equipment, deep cleaning, regular inspections. No more sticky floors and broken chairs." Owen paused, letting it all sink in, and finally, "Any form of harassment, discrimination, or mistreatment will be grounds for immediate termination. No warnings, no second chances." Tara nodded slowly. Chloe blinked rapidly, biting her lower lip to keep her composure. "I can't fix everything in a week," Owen said. "But I can promise you this, you'll never have to work beside someone like Kyle again." Chloe found her voice first. "Why now?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. "Why not months ago?" Owen met her gaze without flinching. "Because I got comfortable," he said. "Thought no news meant good news. I was wrong." Tara leaned forward slightly. "What about the other stores?" Owen smiled grimly. "Already scheduled surprise visits. I'm not just cleaning this cafe. I'm cleaning the whole company." Chloe let out a shaky breath, a small, real smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. "I guess we're starting fresh," she said. "We are," Owen agreed. "Together." He stood, stretching his sore back. "Go home," he said. "Take tomorrow off, full pay." "I'll cover it." Chloe's eyes widened, but she didn't argue. Tara looked too stunned to speak. Owen grabbed a rag and turned back to the counter. "I'll lock up." Chloe and Tara gathered their things in silence. As Chloe passed him, she hesitated. "Thank you," she said, voice steady. Owen nodded. "Thank you for staying when it would have been easier to walk away." Chloe smiled, a real one this time, and slipped out the door with Tara close behind. Owen wiped down the last counter, the city lights outside flickering in the puddles along the street. The cafe was silent now, but it felt different, lighter. Like something that had been broken for a long time was finally starting to mend. He pulled out his phone and opened a blank document. At the top he wrote, "Lessons learned." Then he started typing. 2 weeks later, Owen parked his truck across the street from the downtown cafe and leaned back in his seat, watching through the windshield. The rain had given way to a crisp, bright afternoon, and a steady stream of customers flowed in and out of the shop. He spotted Chloe behind the counter, working alongside a new face, a tall woman with a confident stance and quick hands. Tara hovered near the register, helping a young man who was clearly still learning the ropes. Owen smiled to himself. a small, satisfied expression. They were short-staffed, still rebuilding, but the energy inside the café had shifted entirely. It buzzed with life now, not tension. He grabbed the clipboard from his passenger seat and crossed the street. Inside, the smell of fresh coffee and baked goods hit him immediately. The floors gleamed. Tables were spotless. The pastry case was full and attractively arranged. A bulletin board near the entrance featured handwritten notes from customers thanking the staff for the improvements. He stepped up to the counter, keeping to the side to avoid disrupting the flow. Chloe spotted him and gave a brief nod before finishing the drink she was preparing. "Hey, Owen," she said, wiping her hands on her apron. "You're early." "Wanted to see how things were running before we sit down," he said. "Looks good." Chloe tucked a stray curl behind her ear. "We're getting there. Still training the new guys, but it feels different now, better." The new woman behind the counter caught Owen's attention. She moved with practiced ease, calling out orders with a steady, upbeat tone. Chloe noticed his gaze. "That's Dana. She's the new manager." Chloe's voice carried a note of pride. "You'll like her." "No nonsense, but fair," Owen nodded, pleased. He waited until the line thinned out, then signaled Chloe and Tara to join him at a corner table. Dana gave them a thumbs up, immediately stepping in to cover. As they sat, Owen laid the clipboard on the table. "I've been making rounds at the other locations," he said, flipping through his notes. "Found some good people, found some problems too, same story as here, places where leadership fell apart." Tara leaned forward, curious. "How bad?" "Worse than I expected in a few spots," Owen admitted. "But nothing we can't fix." Chloe crossed her arms, thoughtful. "You think they'll actually change, though? Some people get stuck." "They'll change," Owen said simply, "or they'll leave. There's no room here anymore for people who treat others like garbage." Tara tapped the table lightly. "What about us? What's next for this store?" Owen smiled slightly. "You're heading in the right direction. Dana's doing a solid job already. You keep building the team, keep raising the standards. I'll make sure you have the resources you need." Chloe hesitated, then said, "We could use more hands during the morning rush. It's rough with just 3 people." Owen scribbled a note. "Approved. I'll authorize 2 more hires, part-time to start. You and Dana pick them." Tara let out a relieved breath. "That'll help a lot." Owen leaned back, studying them. "I need something from you too," he said. "I need you to keep telling me the truth. If something's broken, if someone's dragging the place down, I want to hear it immediately." "No more silence." Chloe met his eyes. "You'll listen?" "I will," Owen said firmly. "Every time." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the promise settling between them. A customer approached the counter, an elderly man with a cane. Dana immediately moved to assist him, her voice kind and patient. Owen watched as the man smiled, visibly relaxing. "That used to be rare," Chloe said quietly, following his gaze. "People smiling." "Not anymore," Owen said. "Not if we keep doing things right." He stood, gathering his notes. "One more thing," he added. "Starting next month, we're rolling out a profit-sharing bonus. Every store that hits service and cleanliness benchmarks shares a piece of the profits. You all work hard, you deserve to see the reward." Tara's eyes widened. "Seriously? Seriously?" Chloe blinked, stunned. "That would change everything." Owen tucked the clipboard under his arm. "That's the idea." He headed toward the door, pausing as he reached it. "Proud of you both," he said over his shoulder. "Keep going." The bell above the door jingled as he stepped outside. The sun was beginning to set, casting long golden beams across the street. Owen stood there for a moment, breathing it in. The job wasn't finished, it might never be fully finished, but for the first time in a long time, he felt like he was building something real again. He pulled out his phone and opened the lessons learned document he had started that night after firing Kyle. A new line waited at the bottom. Blinking, he typed, "Never assume silence means everything's fine." It usually means the opposite. He tucked the phone away and headed to his truck, the evening stretching ahead full of work, full of promise. The cafe lights glowed behind him, warm and steady.